Thanks, Safwan, for joining me today. To kick us off, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Kieran, no, thanks so much. Appreciate it. My name is Safwan Masood. I'm a senior here at UC Berkeley studying data science and economics. And I'm also the managing director of a pre-seed startup accelerator called Free Ventures, where zero equity startup accelerator. We take in a couple companies per semester. These are all student founders, and we try to get them from 0 to 1, whether that is getting them funding, helping them land customers, helping them find a co-founder, whatever it might be. We're just trying to help student founders build and scale their startups here on campus.
Nice. That's awesome. And how did you first learn about Free Ventures?
Yeah, so actually, when I first came to college 4 years ago, I actually had no idea what Free Ventures was. I actually had no idea what startups were at all. I came to college as a political science major, wanting to go to law school. But halfway through my freshman year, I, you know, stumbled upon tech. I took a data science course, ended up really liking it. Then I ended up, trying to switch my major to data science. COVID hit my freshman year, took a gap year, worked at a startup for about a year as a product manager, pretty early stage company. And I was just super interested in what startups were. Like, I think it really intrigued me. So when I came back after my gap year, after the startup had kind of closed up shop, I was like, you know what? I kind of want more. I want to be involved in the startup space here on campus. And I was looking for organizations to kind of fit that need. And so stumbled upon Free Ventures through a couple of mutual friends who were in the org. And I thought the work they did was super cool. They were telling about how, hey, like, we work with actual companies, we work with the founders, we help them actually build and scale their ideas. So I found out about it around midway through my sophomore year, ended up applying to the internal team, which is the internal operations team, and ended up getting in. And yeah, so I've been in it for about a year and a half now, and loving every second of it. But yeah, that's kind of stumbled upon it just through a mutual friend and that interest for startups after working for one.
Nice. And let's start with questions directed to help student founders who are considering applying to be in the portfolio of Free Ventures. I saw you guys have a 2-step admission process, a written application, and a 45-minute interview. Can you talk more about how that 45-minute interview is structured?
Yeah, I mean, so the 45-minute interview that we have with all of our potential founders is pretty straightforward. We're really just trying to get to know them as a person, understand what they've built, why they're building it, and then their vision for how they want to scale that company, right? So one thing that we really talk about or ask them is, a lot about their vision. Like, hey, how are you thinking about this problem? What do you think about the space? What about these competitors, right? How are you going to pivot? What are some pivots you've already made? So we just want to get a gauge of what have they already done, what they're looking to do, and how they can leverage our program and how we can honestly best help them. So a lot of it's informational for us, and we take a lot of what we hear in the interview, and we actually apply it and helping them out if they get into the actual accelerator program. So just a chill conversation, getting to know them, the company, some of their visions. So yeah.
Gotcha. And what advice would you give to a student founder to basically help them stand out during that admission process?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a bunch of different ways, right? Like, oftentimes the company kind of speaks for itself, right? Like, sometimes the traction's really good, and then you just kind of stand out like that too. That's like the most generic way, right? But oftentimes we're working at a very, very early stage. Like, the companies we all take into the program are pre-seed companies, so oftentimes they're pre-funding, pre-customer, and a lot of times even pre-product. So I think the biggest way as a founder to stand out in these sorts of interviews, not only for our accelerator program, but just any accelerator program, it's just going to be enthusiastic about your company, right? So that's number one, be enthusiastic. I want to be excited about what you're building, and I want to see that you're excited about it too. So I think a lot of that is how well can you excite the other person on the other end of the screen or table. And also the second part of it is, how much can I learn about your company and the industry you're working in? Because oftentimes, I mean, we're seeing companies from various industries. And I mean, am I an expert on every single industry? Of course not. So I think a really great experience of how a founder will stand out is if they're able to teach me something that I didn't know before in a very easy to understand way. And I walk away from that interview or interaction being like, oh, wow, you know what? I understand that's a huge problem and I get why they're building it. And that's super cool. And if I'm able to walk away from that, I think that makes a super productive interview. And that makes you remember a founder, but I try to remember like everybody I interview and make sure I study up on them. So yeah.
Nice. I really like that advice. The program consists of this point person structure that you guys talked about on your website, mentorship and curriculum. Can you share more details about just like how the curriculum is structured and what you guys cover?
Yeah, so I mean, there are three core tenets to our program, right? I think we covered a couple of them. So there's mentorship, curriculum, and then our point person structure. Mentorship is basically leveraging our Rolodex of ex-investors, founders, and operators at companies that have had successful exits or have scaled very, very well. So we bring about 4 to 5 mentors in every single week during our program. And we allow our founders to network with them and ask them any questions they might have about, how to overcome specific challenges in the company they're facing, or just get any general advice on something they're looking to do. So that's mentorship. There's obviously a lot more to that as well, but we have weekly mentorship sessions. Same thing with curriculum as well. Curriculum, we actually curate our own startup curriculum. So we talk about, hey, like, what is customer discovery? How do you create business models, revenue models, pricing schemes, etc. We also talk about fundraising a lot. So we bring in investors from, really good firms like Pear and Coastal Ventures and NEA, and bring investors from those firms and have our companies pitch to those firms and get feedback on their pitch or anything else they might need to work on. So that's a big part of curriculum, is kind of learning, okay, how do I structure the company? And how would I pitch it and sell the company at the end of the day? So that's curriculum. And then at the end, we have the point person structured. So what that really is really we take 2 internal Free Ventures members and put them on each current batch company to help those founders with whatever they need. So we could serve as like an intern, we could serve as like an acting co-founder, or just like a sounding board. So oftentimes we find ourselves helping the companies or advising the companies on pitch decks and a little bit of strategy if we have expertise in that space or have done it before. So we're just kind of there for the founders whenever they need, and that's our big thing about the point person structure. But that's pretty much our Accelerator program, and we're trying to just help founders get to the stage they want to go through those 3 avenues.
Cool. And then I saw you work with partners like Cooley, the House Fund, and AWS Activate. Can you share more about how they support the work that you guys are doing?
Yeah, so we're actually zero equity. So that means that all the companies we take in, we take zero equity, which is why we're called free ventures. So we don't make any money off of that. So some of the way that we make money is actually through these sponsors, is that they see the value in our program and want to engage with not only the companies that we have in our batch, but just the entire UC Berkeley entrepreneurship ecosystem as a whole. So they will funnel money into our program to, number one, support our normal operations, but also they'll come in for mentorship sessions, curriculum sessions. We'll have one-off events for these sponsors as well to engage with this ecosystem, whether it's, like I said, through those general events where we just want to talk about entrepreneurship or something specific, or we bring them into our program to specifically advise our startups. So for Cooley, for example, they're really big in like the legal aspect of startups. And so our contact there is super great, the Cal alum, and he comes back every semester and spends his time to help advise our companies on legal matters and how they should navigate certain regulatory things. So that's an example, is that they provide us value, we provide them value back by exposing them to certain companies and potential clients they might want for their businesses. That's kind of what sponsorship is. And right now we're currently working with the House and AWS, so as well as Cooley. So yeah.
Nice. And are you looking to like bring on more sponsors, or where are you at in that process?
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking to bring on more sponsors as long as we're able to provide value and vice versa, right? So I think it's always a fine line of, how can we not only like extract value from our sponsors and get that, but how can we also provide value to them too? So oftentimes a lot of companies, really want to tap into the UC Berkeley entrepreneurship ecosystem, whether that is a potential customer base or they just want to learn more about the space as a whole, connect with founders, whatever it might be. We're pretty much here to help you do that. And yeah, we're always open to sponsors. Yeah.
Nice. And what do you see as like the biggest opportunities to improve free ventures in terms of like how you guys support and work with founders?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of room for improvement. I mean, I think, our program's already really great. We've been around for 11 years now, ever since 2013. So we've had a lot of time to iterate upon these different parts of free ventures, whether it's mentorship and curriculum and that advisory structure I talked about. So I think we already have such a great, robust program. We have a lot of great events as well. I think the real way to improve it is we just need better reach within the community. We need a lot more cohesiveness within the entrepreneurship community as a whole at UC Berkeley as well. So one of the initiatives we're currently working on is we're collaborating with other entrepreneurship orgs to create some sort of shared system, shared structure where we're all able to co-host events, have some sort of entrepreneurship board that we help make decisions on campus, and just help each other out mutually. So I think the really big thing is we want to integrate further within the community, work with other organizations to kind of help them with their events, their initiatives, and vice versa. And overall, just create more awareness for entrepreneurship on campus and create that accessibility on campus as well. I think oftentimes, UC Berkeley is always regarded as such a great entrepreneurship school and ecosystem, and it is. But I feel like a lot of what happens here on campus is pretty fragmented, and there's not a lot of awareness for students on how to get involved in entrepreneurship. And so that's one thing we're trying to get better at, and we're trying to help students out as well. It's just creating better community around entrepreneurship and allowing everybody to get in it. So yeah.
Cool. I love that. And also, like, I went to Cal and didn't know about the entrepreneurship scene or the startup scene while I was there. So love that you guys are trying to like just piece it together and make sure people are aware of all the work that you guys are doing. And then kind of curious, like, what percentage of student founders that you guys work with continue on their startups after graduation?
Yeah, quite honestly, it really varies from batch to batch. We've had about 20 different batches now, nearly 100 portfolio companies over our 11-year time. But I would say on average, anywhere from 20 to 25% of founders from our program will actually end up still be working on their company or a pivot idea, by the time they graduate or even post-graduation. So we have pretty good success rates for it. Obviously, a lot of companies do end up, unfortunately, having to close up shop. But we do have a pretty high rate of retainment amongst founders who continue building their ideas even after our program. And we're still connected to a ton of companies that have been in our portfolio for years now and keep us updated on, big milestones. Like, hey, they got a huge like Series A or Series B funding. They land that huge customer. They come back to our program and help our current batch founders as well. So I think there's a lot of great community in our alumni network. But I would say there's a solid chunk of people still working on it for sure.
Nice. And I wanted to transition to questions now for students who want to join the Free Ventures internal team. Can you give an overview of like that admission process of applying to join the team?
Yeah, definitely. So just for context, we run a pretty lean team. We're only ever about 7 to 8 to maybe 10 max people who actually run the accelerator on a day-to-day process. And how that structure works is, we have associates who come in, their first semesters here in Free Ventures. And then on top of that, once they've been in the org for a little bit, they become a director. And then after director, once they've been leading a huge part of Free Ventures or a huge initiative, then they could get promoted to managing director. So those are kind of the 3 levels here. If you apply to Free Ventures and want to join, you would join as an associate. And so the process is pretty straightforward. We have a written application. We have a couple different writing prompts on there. Really just try to gauge, hey, like, what's your interest level for startups? What experience do you have with companies? Do you have any previous niche interests that we need to know about that could help you or help us here at Free Ventures as well? So we have a written application. Once that happens, then we kind of filter through candidates, select them for first round interviews. First round interviews are generally like 30 to 45 minutes long. We're generally asking a lot of behavioral questions and scenario questions. We're not really trying to grill anybody with a case or trying to be overly toxic with anything. We're just simply trying to get to know our applicants and understand their journey in entrepreneurship, whether that was as a founder or just working at a startup or whether they were just interested at it, right? We don't require our internal members to per se have startup experience, although most of us do. But what we really care about is what's your passion level, right? Like, are you seriously driven to make an impact in the entrepreneurship space here on campus? Do you want to work at startups, et cetera? That's what we're gauging that first round. Then after that, we move them to a final round, which consists of a presentation on how to improve our program or improve the entrepreneurship community in general. So it's a pretty open-ended question, but we just want to hear what people's ideas are and everybody says, because oftentimes we will take people based on their ideas of how they would improve our org or the community as a whole, and actually help them do that. So that's what that interview is. We're also going to be asking some behavioral stuff, some scenario stuff, like, hey, like, let's say a founder lost their engineer today, their head engineer. How would you help them with hiring again? So we're asking them real world scenario questions to try to gauge how they'd actually go about the process of helping founders push through some of their biggest problems, which is what we do on a day-to-day here at Free Ventures, is help them just kind of overcome battles. So after that final round, then we generally hand out offers to anywhere from 2 to 4, could be 5 people per new semester, but that's the general process. Written application, first round interview, and then last round where you go over how to improve the community or the org as a whole, and then going to be asking you some behavioral and scenario questions as well. So yeah.
Cool. And then as you guys like onboard new team members, I guess like how do you train them to give like good advice and be helpful?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an iterative approach, right? So when somebody joins Free Ventures as an internal member, we obviously give them a crash course and boot camp on some of these things that we do. Like, hey, like, how do you be a point person? What is your role in advising? Like, what value can you provide to founders? How can you overcome or help them overcome problems? So those are some of the basic things that we go over. It's a little bit abstract just because obviously not every founder is going to have the exact same problems, but there's some commonalities, right? Like, for example, we really focus on pitching, right? Because a lot of our program is geared towards helping companies get money. So in our 11 years, we've all of our portfolio companies combined have gotten over $170 million in follow-on capital. So as a point person, it's really, really crucial that you help the companies with their pitches, crafting their story, and actually instilling confidence in founders. And I think that's really what being a point person at Free Ventures is really all about, is helping founders create clarity in their vision and helping to sell their vision. So we really teach them that, pitching, et cetera. That's one thing we really go over. But outside of that, we really tell everybody at Free Ventures to use your personal experience. I mean, like I said, most people on the Free Ventures team have worked at startups or founded startups. So we've been in positions very similar to these founders. So we're able to leverage our past experience and be like, hey, like, I've been through this one before, or I've seen this before. Here's how that person, or here's how I overcame it. And let me actually sit here and help you do it. So that's what the biggest thing about being a point person. And that's what we instill in all of our new members. And even, throughout the entire program, if you're in Free Ventures, we're always trying to get better as point people, always trying to make ourselves available. So we have formal training and then kind of just like training along the way as well, ad hoc. So that's kind of how it works.
Cool. And then for students who are in the org, I guess like what are some things that they can do to like stand out and move up? I know you moved from associate all the way to managing director. Like maybe talk about some of the things that you excelled at or you did during your time as like an associate that helped you move up within the org.
Yeah, Kieran, I wish there was really a formula to this stuff. There unfortunately really isn't. Like, me personally and just what I've seen in general is I think it's really about initiative, right? It's really about ownership and initiative. Is that I think not only to kind of make your way up in Free Ventures, but just any organization is going to be how much ownership do you take in your work? How much pride do you take in that? Do you go the extra mile to really get things done and go above and beyond? And I think that's really what we value. So one thing in Free Ventures that we value a ton is like, hey, like, you have this initiative, you want to do it, you have full ownership of doing it, and we're going to do everything in our power to support you to get there, right? Everybody in Free Ventures has their own personal initiative that they're running, their own things that they're doing. And so what we're really about is trying to just get to that point, whatever it takes. And so if you're able to show that passion in your work, go above and beyond, and really, really care about startups, that's just going to show regardless. So there's no, I would say, formula to everything. It's very different for everybody. But I think that's what it's about, is showing that ownership and really just taking initiative to get things done.
Yeah, makes sense. And then was kind of curious about like what the time commitment looks like for internal team members. Like how much are people spending on this per week maybe?
You know, I want to say how much time I spend on it per week, but that's gonna look so bad because like that's just way too much time.
Yeah.
But no, no, all jokes aside, like yeah, I'm not gonna lie, free ventures is a pretty big time commitment. I think one thing we tell everybody who wants to join is like, are you sure? Are you sure you want to do this? Because you're gonna spend a lot of time here, and that's the cool part about free ventures, right? Is that we do a lot of really cool work that's very versatile, right? To answer your question very directly, me personally, I think I'm spending anywhere from, you know, 10 to 15, sometimes 20 hours a week on free ventures, but it really
Yeah.
depends because we have events. That takes up like 6 hours a week for me almost. Then there's just like personal work I do on the side, meetings I'll have. So I'm spending a ton of time. Everybody else in free ventures also spending a lot of time, like probably around the 10-hour mark.
Yeah.
Go up week to week. And the reason for that, because everybody always asks us, like, why do you guys spend so much time on this thing? Really, I mean, it kind of turns into a full-time job, right? Like, end of the day, we are like 8 undergraduate students running an entire accelerator program. And so there's a lot that goes into it, right? There's a lot of admin tasks on the back end. There's a lot of strategy, right? Like, how do we learn from what we did and improve, and how do we strategize what we should do? There's a lot of actual tangible stuff too. Like, we are hosting events all the time. We have personal initiatives that we do. Like, I personally started the Free Ventures Fellowship Program when I was an associate last year, and now it's a staple in Free Ventures. And we take in 2 freshman or sophomore students every year who are interested in entrepreneurship but don't have a background in it and want to break into it. So that's a program that I started. So managing your own initiatives, working through normal operations. So there's a lot of different parts your brain are using, and that's really what takes up a lot of time. Is you got 3 or 4, sometimes 5 concurrent work streams. So that's kind of the time commitment. And yeah, I wish it was less, but I love it though. It's fun. I'm learning a ton. So yeah.
Yeah, love that you guys are super committed to this. And then last question, is there anything I didn't ask about that you think is important to know for either a student founder considering working with you guys or someone who wants to join the internal team?
Yeah, I mean, I think the real high level thing is for both founders and students, the commonality. One thing that I really care about, one thing that I think everybody in free ventures really cares about is that passion, right? Like, we just want to work with passionate people. So if you're a founder and you're interested in joining Accelerator, whether it's free ventures or just any other accelerator out there, the big thing is show that passion, show why you're building that company, what your vision is, really hone down that story. I can't harp on that enough, right? Like, story matters a ton. And I think when you're able to give a compelling story, when I'm able to leave an interview or an interaction, understanding who you are and learning something, that's a huge positive. And that makes me like want to work with you. And I'm sure vice versa as well. So that's the same thing for students as well too, is like really show that passion. If you're really trying to get into the entrepreneurship space here on campus, I think Free Ventures is the perfect place to do it, but it also could not be for you as well. So I think it's also about trying to understand what you want to achieve within this community. And there's definitely a place and org for you as well. But regardless of whatever path you choose, I think end of the day, just be super curious and be optimistic and try to show that energy. And I think that's the main thing. And that'll just motivate people around you. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Safwan, for joining me today.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And if anybody has any questions, just feel free to head over to our website at freeventures.org. And if you have any questions, we're always super open to talking, any of us on the internal team. So thanks so much, Ken, for having me. Really appreciate it.